You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryant.
And I'm Sean Baumsart. Together, we're navigating life with disability. Alright, what's up? Welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This is episode 34. Kyle and Sean are here today, like always, I guess. Anyway, before we get into everything, we want to let you know about an event coming up that we are super excited about. Rare Disease Week on Capitol Hill is at the end of February. The Ataxian will be shown to kick off the week, and Kyle and I, the Two Disabled Dudes podcast, and our entire team will be there to record a live Q&A after the showing. So stay tuned for more information on there. Of course, we'll have it all over social media and the website. You can even visit rareadvocates.org/RDW if you are anywhere near the DC area. We'd encourage you to come on out.
Oh yeah, we are looking forward to being in Washington, D.C., but in this episode, we feature Katie Stevens, President of Dyskeratosis Congenita Outreach, or DCO. It's an organization serving an ultra-rare disease community. And we get to talk to Katie a little bit about that what now moment. It's that moment that everyone has when they realize they're facing a really challenging situation. And in this situation, it's the diagnosis of a rare disease, right? But it relates to all challenging situations, and it's like, and you just go, all right, you stare at this thing and go, what the heck am I going to do now, right? And so we get to talk to Katie a little bit about that. So we will hear all about Katie and DCO in just a few minutes. But before we play that interview, we've been doing another 2DD challenge of writing one thank you card a day for 30 days. And I believe Sean has a story that he wants to share with us.
I do, and I'm actually been looking forward to sharing this story. To be honest, this story has not taken place over the last couple weeks, so it's kind of pre the 30-day challenge, so I don't get credit in that regard for this one. But anyway, a couple months ago, I was attending the Napa Valley Film Festival where the Ataxian was showing. And during one of the events, I had a little bit of downtime, so I decided I would run an errand all the way out to FedEx, Kinko's, or whatever it's called today. And during this festival, there was a company that was providing free shuttle service, like in fancy golf carts, street legal golf carts. They were shuttling people all over the quaint little town of Napa. So I decided I had like an hour to kill, so I was going to get in one of these carts and go to FedEx or Kinko's and get some stuff printed and come back for the big dinner. Anyway, I jump in the shuttle, driving all over to get to the place. Because they're golf carts, there are certain roads they can't go on, like super busy boulevard type roads, so we kind of had to go the long way. Anyway, in the process of driving, I'm talking to the driver, and I learned that, yeah, even though the service is free this particular week, they work on cash tips, which is reasonable. I think probably most people are like, yeah, duh, that's what every driver does. Well, I don't know why. I didn't think about it that way until the guy had said something like, oh, yeah, we were just making tips while we're out here. And it dawns on me like, oh, my gosh, I'm using the shuttle and I'm having the guy go way out of the normal to take me somewhere, and I don't have any cash. Kyle, I don't know about you, but I just don't carry cash very often. So I'm feeling horrible. We get to my spot. The guy left, I get out and I just confess. I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. I don't have any cash, but I know you're driving all night. So I promise you I will find an ATM while I'm out here and I will find you later. And the guy was super gracious and kind, and he was like, yeah, cool, all right. We exchanged names and went our separate ways. I ended up getting an Uber to go back to the main event. I got some cash, so I was halfway there, right? At least I felt like I was on the right track. And then, of course, I get distracted. I don't find the guy. I did not give a tip. I never followed up to give him a tip. So I go home after the weekend, and I feel terrible, and it's nagging at me over a couple days. So I reached out. I found the address to the company, and I made sure that Gus, the driver's name, is still there. And I wrote Gus a thank you note, and I tipped him. Like, I gave him some money, and I sent it in a little thank you note because I just felt like...
How much did you... How much money?
I sent him a $20 bill.
Holy cow, dude. You just straight up put a $20 bill in the envelope?
Yeah, just cold hard cash. I think 20's probably a little bit high. Like, admittedly, in the moment, I probably would have given him $3 or $4. But I felt like by now, a couple weeks have gone by. I totally let him down. I'm super late. I didn't find him like I promised I would. So I felt like I needed to go a little above and beyond. And side note, this is part of what we talked about in our last episode. The whole idea behind Don't Forget the Crew is doing just that, going a little above and beyond to express those unexpected moments or tokens of appreciation. So I put that to work, and I said, this is what I need to do to honor my word. So yeah, I sent Gus a little thank you note, but that's not even the coolest part of the story.
I was going to say, and you're a baller. So you just like throw 20s around like they're nothing, dude.
No. No, I had to roll pennies to get a whole 20. Anyway, the coolest thing about this story, and what's really struck me about this one, is that Gus received my thank you note, and he actually took the time to respond with his own thank you note. He hand wrote a little thank you card and put a stamp on it and mailed it back to me, literally just to say thank you for following through like that.
Wow.
And that was so moving for me. It was touching. You give things like that, or you send thank you notes with no strings attached. And for this perfectly random stranger to honor that by saying, oh, well, thank you, or whatever, and send a note back, really made my day.
I would have just been like, dude, thanks. Like, you finally got my tip. Like, what's up with that?
It's about time. No, it was cool. Made my day. So, yeah.
I love that.
It was cool.
That's a great story. Shout out to Gus. Thank you, Gus, for that awesome story and for being a cool dude.
Yeah, and for the fun of it, for those of you who maybe haven't caught the last episode, don'tforgetthecrew.com is where you'll find some more information and different fun ways you can get involved in just helping express some thank yous or some gratitude to the people that you get to interact with on a regular basis.
Nice. I love it.
Anyway, talking about thank yous or expressing gratitude, one of the coolest stories that comes out of the interview we're about to play for you is this story of one thing DC Outreach does just to help make life a little better for people in the ultra rare community, or at least the folks in their community. So talking about sending things, these guys actually do care packages, and in just a few minutes you'll get to hear a pretty moving story about something they did. Let's get right into it. Thanks for tuning in today. Here's our conversation with Katie Stevens, president of DCO.
How are you, Katie? How's your day going?
It's great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys, and I'm really grateful to be chatting.
Awesome. So, Katie, first of all, let our listeners know where you live. Where are you calling from today?
So I live in northern Idaho, just a little bit north of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in a little town called Hayden. And yep, that's where I am, kind of just shy of Canada.
Nice.
Oh,
beautiful.
wow. You're way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long would it take you to drive over the border into Canada from where you are?
I think it's 2 hours for me to hop the border, so
All right.
not far.
So there you go. So Katie, tell us about your family.
So I'm a mom of 4 kids. I married my high school sweetheart. We are heading into our 18th year of marriage, so about 50% of my life. We've
Wow.
been married. Yep, and
Nice.
we've got 4 kids. Riley is 16, Olivia's 14, Ethan's 11, and Grayson's 4.
Wow. All right. And you were telling us right before we got on the call that they're out skiing today. Is that true?
Yep. We went yesterday, and Grayson's hilarious. He's just this little tiny Pop-Tart out there on these skis cruising. I mean, like cruising. I couldn't keep up with him yesterday down a mountain. And then my husband took our older 2 boys with him today, and I've got Liv and Gray, and just hanging out on Sunday. So
Beautiful.
it's beautiful today. It's a bluebird day, so I'm kind of actually
Nice.
jealous I didn't go because yesterday we were socked in the fog.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
I bet. How's the snow?
Oh, it's great. I was actually telling, Bruce, Kyle, and
Yeah.
I was telling Bruce, I was like, he goes, if I lived out there, I'd probably ski, but not over here. The snow's just not as good. But it's high altitude, so it's powder, and just we have good snow.
Yeah, and mountains on the East Coast aren't really mountains. Like I was looking at it, and I think the highest peak this side of the Mississippi is like 6,000 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, we've got some good mountains over here.
Beautiful. All right. So, tell us about DC. What is DC, and how does it affect your family?
So my oldest child is not. I guess I'll start with Dyskeratosis congenita. So it's a telomere biology disorder. So the end cap of the chromosomes, if you can picture a shoelace, has the egglet, and the egglet's job is to keep the shoelace from unraveling, and the telomere essentially has the same function. It keeps the DNA as it overturns from unraveling, and our patients have extremely short telomeres. And so my son, who was diagnosed originally with bone marrow failure when he was 11, so 5 years ago, they weren't doing, the frontline testing wasn't for the genetic side of things, and so we had already gone through a treatment. His physician ended up going, I believe, to ASH and heard about this testing and came back and said, hey, why don't we run this test? And they sent it off to Canada to do the telomere length, and sure enough, Riley's came back exceptionally low, what you would see in what, if you tested an 80 to 90-year-old person is what you were finding in my, 11, 12-year-old child. And so, it's a multi-system, because it's the entire body, that relies on your DNA. It's multi-system failure and problems for our patients. So, we kind of go through, like the bone marrow failure. We have physicians that are figuring that out, and it's kind of the Band-Aid. We don't have a cure. We just kind of have these Band-Aids and do the best. The medical world is doing the best they can with what they have for our patients' problems.
Nice. So, I feel like with a lot of these conditions, with the FA to a certain extent as well, it's like, you got to live as well as you can today, right? Because tomorrow is likely going to be a much different story. And sometimes you don't even know when that tomorrow is going to come, right? You don't know when those challenges are going to arise. So you do things like go skiing like all regular families do, right? And just try and live the most normal life you can, and maybe do a little extra because you know that tomorrow is going to be a lot more challenging when it comes.
Yeah, and I know you personally, Kyle and Sean. I've gotten to kind of know you, on Facebook and that thing. You just, I don't want to. I would not choose this life for anyone, to make them live with a rare disease. But there actually is some beauty in it because, my son, even today, he just said, he's like, I don't want to ingest crap into my lungs, and I want to be able to breathe as long as I can breathe and do as much as I can do. And there's beauty in really capturing your life, I guess, to watch that too as a mom, and just see your kid know that you can't take your health for granted.
Yeah,
and a lot of people do. So,
Kate, I think that's a tribute to you and your husband too, because you've instilled that in your son, right? Like, be grateful for what you have and cherish your health and live as well as you can right now. So, I love to hear that. Tell us about DCO and your role.
Okay. So DCO is about 10 years old, and it was started through the NIH physicians and a group of patients and caregivers. And really, it was just, there's so few out there, and just getting this group together. And I hope I'm doing the history justice because I wasn't a part of, the original organization. But, really the idea was so that they didn't feel alone in this devastating disease. Because really, as well as my child is doing, for the majority, they don't have, it doesn't look like that, and so to give them community, they created this organization, and really it started as outreach and working with medical, to keep in the loop and, have conversations, and then they started meeting at Camp Sunshine, which I think was really life-changing. I know it was for me, to attend, and that patients from all over the world and caregivers from all over the world can convene in one place and be in front of, specialists in this disease, which there aren't very many of. And really that was the beginning of DCO. And then they took it a step further and created clinical guidelines so that, rural families, or not even rural, sometimes you're in a city and the physicians you're meeting have no idea how to treat this disease, and so they took it upon themselves to create the clinical guidelines, and people have this incredible tool to take with them. And so really the organization is just built from that, kind of the outreach and then stepping into the medical piece of it. And my role, I'm president of DCO. I took over, I've been in 1 year this month, and really it's been about building, for me, the last 12 months is we've been building, the infrastructure to be able to better serve, our patients, because we want, and we recognize that the disease isn't necessarily specific to what it used to be. People in the pulmonary fibrosis world are starting to test telomeres and finding that, yes, they're short, and that's probably what's causing the idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And then there's a whole piece of the GI, and we share, there's all these comorbidities that we're kind of getting ready to help as well. So that's kind of been my role, is to build the infrastructure in the first year, and then grow the organization's capacity with the incredible team that I have working with me.
Can you give us an idea of what that team looks like, or maybe how big your community is? Like when you talk about having different families and patients and doctors involved, how big is your reach right now?
We've got think 5 on our board. 5 and 6 including me. And then we were really just a board for the first 8 years, and then we changed it from board to committee to really expand our bandwidth and bring in people that aren't caregivers and aren't patients, so that they weren't necessarily bogged down by the health challenges, but keep people, that know and live it, to keep that piece of it going and be more cohesive with, really what is it that patient and caregivers want. We have an incredible medical advisory board. Our team is just, you go to these conferences and they talk about collaboration and creating culture of collaboration, and I kind of stepped in and it had already been created with this medical advisory board. And not only that, but there's a consortium that they created for telomere biology disorders, and actually last October we were able to help put on a workshop with our team of doctors, and had about 50 physicians with multidiscipline in there, and it was incredible, the energy in the room and their want to continue to solve problems. I mean, it's highly motivating. I think one of the pieces where I know that we serve about 300, we're still getting our systems down and all of that to be able to accurately know, is our care package program, which I think you guys have seen on Facebook what we're doing with that, is a really good idea. We've sent out about 60 packages in about 9 months, and haven't even touched how many need it.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So, tell us how that came about and how it works, what it does.
Yeah, so before me, the team was sending out care packages to bone marrow transplant patients, because about 80% of our patients end up needing a bone marrow transplant, which was awesome, and it was great, and my son actually received one of those care packages. But when we went to committees and we were starting to really look at things, we really needed to meet people wherever they were in their journey. It wasn't that people necessarily, there's that 20% of the population that may not have a bone marrow transplant, or they may be gearing up for it, or newly diagnosed, or, wherever they were in their journey, we wanted to make sure that we were supporting them. And my girlfriend, Emily, who works at Camp Sunshine, came on board with us, and she's a real go-getter. And so she started hand-tying blankets. So she and I will make these blankets and package them and send them out. But not only that, is we really wanted to integrate our bereaved community. And so one of our moms who lost a child last year has been donating like water bottles and really taking over the marketing. And so that whole piece is integrated. And we had a moment last October, right before the workshop. A child passed away, and Ryan's mom gave me permission to tell this story. And Ryan's mom emailed me to let me know that Ryan had passed away, but also that he had received his care package. And when she opened it, she laid the blanket out, and she gave him all his gifts that DCO was able to give. And she said, because of that package, I was able to see my child's last smile on this earth. And he passed. Things went from, bad to worse very quickly after that. And he ended up passing away about 24 hours later. And I presented this to our physicians at the workshop. And the one thing, it was humbling to me, because I didn't take the care package program as seriously as I probably should have been. I was really focused on the research and how do we move medical and how do we solve this. But real-time science isn't right now,
Right.
And the care package is right now. And that's real-time advocacy, giving a child their last smile and giving a mother that memory. That's a powerful, powerful thing that only we can do. And so of all the things, I think that's our biggest accomplishment, in my opinion, is really letting them know that they're not alone in this. And that stems from the beginning of the organization.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. I think it's probably one of the most important elements of any organization dealing in the disease space. You know, like you said, the science isn't today. You know, we're hopeful and we're confident that good things will come down the path, but, you know, that's a lot of money and a lot of time down the road. But what you talk about with these care packages, that's really the whole point of so many organizations, is really just to form a community where we can all huddle up together and tackle our challenges together. I think that's huge. And I'm so glad you shared that story.
Yeah,
I'm very grateful.
You know, I've heard you tell that story about Ryan several times now, and every time it just hits me like a ton of bricks. And I really love that story. And I you know, the thought that you have about, you know, taking care of ourselves now because science is not immediate. I think it's so true, and it's a balance, right? That we all try to strike, is like, you know, how do we live for right now, but at the same time work as hard as possible for a cure or a better tomorrow? And because those things aren't exactly, you know, you can't do both at the same time a lot of times, I feel like. And so I think the challenge is to strike a balance of, you know, trying to do at least a little of both, or maybe a lot of both, you know?
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. And I think you're right. The challenge is sometimes you have to look at it like, you know, we know that some patients are here to make it better for the next patient. You know, be a part of those studies. And you know, I when I met Bruce, you know, Bruce is the treasurer of DCO, and he coached me, which was really great because I've been a stay-at-home mom for 17 years. I don't have like this mad education in, you know, nonprofit, and I'm not the girl that everybody lined up like, ooh, you know what, I want her to run this. I'm just a stay-at-home mom who this kind of fell in my lap, and I happened to have this person, Bruce Friedman, who, you know, was going through school and getting his master's, and I think in organizational dynamics, and I met him at Camp Sunshine, and he said, you know, my story isn't one of hope, but what I've learned over the last 12 months is even the bereaved families, their stories are hopeful because, you know, it goes into that. It wasn't for them, you know, it wasn't their piece in the medical puzzle wasn't for them, but it was hope for the next, and that short life had so much meaning in it, you know, to carry that on for the next patient, and we just build on that, you know, and until we figure this out, we're each just like this chain of hope for each other, regardless of how long the life is. So it's been a powerful 12 months. It's been a lot of learning and a lot of, you know, like, I don't know, aha moments. So
I think that's a powerful, but also it can be a really hard realization to come to. But that's how I choose to look at how I'm living as well. I may not see the finish line myself, but I know and I believe that whatever I'm doing today, whatever clinical trial I can be a part of, or whatever voice I'm helping give to FA or other rare disease communities, I know it's helping at some point. You know, I may not be around to reap its treasures, but I'm confident that, you know, the little guys and girls that come behind us are going to benefit because we all shared a little bit. We all invested a little bit one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you had talked about. Your community is involved with or serving 300 people. You said worldwide. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, talk for a minute about that. What is the statistical prevalence like? How many is 300 it, or do you know that maybe there's some more out there that haven't been diagnosed, or maybe just haven't found DCO yet?
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. I think some patients choose to stay private,
Sure.
and not get involved. The prevalence is 1 in a million, and I think we'll see more. Like I had shared earlier, there's a lot of comorbidities that are starting to do the genetic testing that are finding that commonality. I think there's some estimate out there that there's probably a prevalence of about 7,000 globally if you really got after it. But, when we're talking on an international level, even in the States, it can be difficult to get testing done. And so when we're talking like on a social, socioeconomic big picture, there are probably way more than you would think, but they don't have the ability to get that testing. And so really DCO has tried to expand on an international level, which they had before. We have DCO Pacific, and now we're moving. We're going to be working with the UK here shortly to really, broaden our reach and pick more established countries that may have the ability to have this testing done. If we work, say, with, I was at a conference and I met with a lot of doctors from India, and they can only go off of the classic triad. So a classic triad for Dyskeratosis congenita is lacy skin, white patches on the tongue called leukoplakia, and then their nails don't develop correctly because anything with overturn just isn't a healthy cell after a while. So those are the classic triad. And so being able to maybe connect Indian doctors with, say, UK doctors, or, I don't know how the big picture is right now, but trying to chip away at it to get, our mission is to serve as everyone that we can and help them as much as we can globally. Anyway, long story, but I think it's more prevalent than you would think. It's just the testing isn't available to everyone.
So you say 1 in a million, and you and Sean and I have had a discussion before about how many people there are in the world. There's, I think, 6 million people in the U.S., around 6 million. So that means there are roughly 6 people with these disorders in the U.S.?
Well, I think we see more of...
Oh, 6 billion.
Yeah, I was going to say, San Francisco has 1 million, so I think there's...
I think Boise, Idaho has 1 million, so we eat up quite a bit of the population.
Okay, so...
We just lost a lot of Americans.
So we will edit that one out. So to put this in perspective, on the other side, I think there's like 6 billion people in the U.S. So does that mean there's like 6,000 people? No, what? How does that work? How many people are there?
I don't know. There's like 8 billion in the world.
That's...
But so we support, our best guess is we support about 300 patients globally.
Yeah, be careful here, Kyle. I know. Don't go math
We're recording
on us, Kyle.
this.
No math. Yeah, we're recording.
So, did we ever figure out how many people there are in the world?
Well, I think Katie knew it was like 6-point-something billion, right? Or almost 8, maybe?
I think we have like 8 billion in the world now.
Okay.
Yeah, because when I graduated high school, it had just hit, like, I remember the day. They were like, oh, my God, we have 6 billion in the world now. So I think we're at 8 now.
And
so I have no idea. I have no idea.
I think I know it's better to just stay away from the exact numbers, because I remember last time we talked, I was like, I think there's like 6 million people in the world.
In the whole world.
When there's like 1 million in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah. So I'm an idiot.
One thing that's coming to mind that I really like hearing the whole 1 in a million thing, that makes me think that Riley, all of 16 years old, has a great pickup line with the girls. Like, hey,
hey baby,
I'm 1 in a million. 1 in a million. What's up? You know.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
So speaking of, would you tell us a little bit about your son? What does he do? What does he want to do? What are his hobbies? What is he getting out of life right now?
Okay, so Riley's he's a good kid. He's just a good kid. So he rocked bone marrow transplant like no other. I mean, he just he got his stems and went on his merry way, it seemed like. So he's currently wrestling. He did swimming in the fall. He varsity lettered in track last year. He's he's not a jock. I don't want to say that, but he's really athletic and he enjoys being able to move. And I've said this before in other interviews, but it's like watching somebody take all the I can'ts because he was so isolated and his body wouldn't allow him to do, what he wanted it to do. We would walk a quarter mile and he'd have to sit down because his blood levels were so low. And it's watching him take all those I can'ts and physically turning them into I cans. Like, I am going to enjoy this body while I've got it. And, he's back in school. He missed about 3 years out of 5 being in school. So I was concerned about him socially, but he seems to be, he's got good friends. He's got good grades. He wants to go to Montana State University. That's always been his goal. It was really important to me that he be excited about his future when he was sick, so we kind of planned for him to go to MSU, and I didn't know if it would stick, but it stuck.
Nice.
And he wants to do snow science, and he talks about doing the 7 summits and Everest. And
oh, wow.
I mean, the kid is, go big or go home, I guess, much to my chagrin, but he wants to do it. So.
I like this kid.
Yeah,
I like him already.
Yeah, and he's one of those, I think, Sean, you and I brought this up, but he's also humble. Like, somebody asked him what he appreciates in life, and he said, I appreciate going to the grocery store. I couldn't go to the grocery store, and now I just get to go to the grocery store. Who gets to say that? So he's just a neat person. He's my son, but he's just a neat person.
So, you talk about him not being able to go to the grocery store. That was because of his bone marrow transplant, right? Like, he couldn't go for a period of time, just he couldn't be out. Is that right?
Yeah, and we lived in Boston, so we had Riley and I moved to Boston for his transplant, and I would have to go, I had to get groceries or I had to get, stuff. And so he would have to wait outside we'd walk down to Target by Fenway and he'd wait outside and I'd run in as fast as I could and get, what we needed. Or we'd walk to Trader Joe's and thankfully they had a little bench that he could chill on. But, I would watch him from the window. Like, I'd go inside and leave him outside, and it was just heartbreaking because he just wanted to go in the grocery store and be around people. And now he can, and he's usually the first to say, yeah, I'll go with you. So
nice. Well, Katie, I wanted you to make sure you know that Sean works at a grocery store in Sacramento, a chain of grocery stores. So if you and Riley are ever in Sacramento, Sean will hook you up with like a behind-the-scenes tour. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Behind-the-scenes grocery stores. I like it. I like this.
It's an amazing little company, so we'll make sure that you and Riley feel right at home.
I love it. All right.
So, Katie, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about DCO and maybe like the, not the science, because I don't think it's worth talking about, for us, for me at least, to talk about, molecular biology and stuff. But what are the organizationally, maybe, and maybe scientifically as well, what are the major milestones that you guys have reached in the last 12 months?
So more than the outreach, that's obviously like I said, a huge part of what we do. We've started trying to work with our medical advisory board more and create more conversation there, and really this year, 2018, attend more conferences, because our job is to educate physicians that aren't specialists in this. The Global Gene Summit last year, I attended teen to adult transition meeting, and CHOP has this amazing program for teen to adult, and Mayo has an amazing program, but there's a lot of hospitals that don't, and as your child transitions into adulthood, there aren't specialists, because mainly specialists have been pediatricians for this disease, and quite frankly, our patients weren't living into adulthood, so nobody had to train in it. And so we're kind of finding our piece as advocates. How do we make that transition better? And so we actually worked with Penn Biotechnology Group this last fall and did a project on teen to adult transition and gaps in caregiver support. And we're finding actual, I don't want to say like we're going to find the answers, but this project is promising. Working with the AMA, working with CHOP, working with Mayo, how do we replicate that in other places? And Penn Biotechnology Group walked away from this project so inspired that they offered to continue it with us. And I think that's a big piece of advocacy, is finding those gaps, like that the medical or the social workers, they're so stretched with so many patients that the smaller rare disease, with no fault of anyone's, it's just that's what happens with rare disease and ultra rare, is you fall through the cracks a little bit, and we're who catches them, I feel like. And how do we fix this? So I think that's our main, like the education of the physicians, attending more conferences, being really present in the conversation, and finding how we can better support the entire village that comes with our patients. That's what we're working on in 2018.
Katie, so, to kind of wrap this episode up for all the listeners out there who are dealing with a difficult situation or even a rare disease diagnosis, and they're having that what now moment, what in the heck do I do now? What would you say is the best first step to tackling this challenge?
Yeah. So I read this amazing article a few months ago, and I kind of wished I had read it 5 years ago. It said, we'll go through 2 first steps, I guess, which sounds kind of funny, but the first step is do nothing. Take that moment, hug your loved one, or, if you're the patient that's newly diagnosed, take a moment and just breathe and, give yourself some grace that this is going to be a challenge. But I think the beautiful thing about what's happening in the rare disease space is, regardless of the diagnosis, you're not alone. That's the next step, is finding your people, finding your community. Ask your physicians. Typically they'll know. I hate throwing people on Google, but, look on Facebook. That's where I found it, was, Facebook is a, double-edged sword, but it does have its good qualities, for people in our shoes, is find your community and then get involved and know that you're not alone in this.
I love that.
That's good.
Beautiful. Well, Katie, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We really, really admire your work. And it just goes to show that we're all in this together. Like, a lot of the stuff that you talked about is exactly what so many other people in so many other situations are doing, and you are an incredible example of how to take those steps forward and make progress, not only for yourself, but for many, many other people. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, guys. You are doing incredible work, and I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to seeing you. I think, Kyle, I'll see you in May, and Sean, I don't know, when do you go to the $1 Million Bike Ride at all, or?
I never have, but I keep hearing good things about it. So
yeah, $1 Million Bike Ride.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Awesome. Well, Katie, like Kyle said, thank you for joining us today and sharing your story and all about your family and DCO. We look forward to seeing you guys continue to grow and change the world one way or another.
Thank you guys so much. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Find us online at twodisableddudes.com. And please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts.
We'd like to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.